Welcome back to the task of learning how to read Hebrew. And if you recall, last time we met, I was going over the Hebrew sound system, the Hebrew vowels. Just to refresh it in your mind, because this is very important. If you know the vowels and you know the letters, you can read, as I said before. So let's go over the vowels one more time. We have the vowel that represent the sound of ah, right here, horizontal line with all its varieties. Horizontal line will give you the sound of ah. The sound of a is created by 2 or 3 horizontal lines, so horizontal dots. So the a sound, you see 2 horizontal dots, that's an a sound, or the 3 hanging grapes, that's an a sound. The E sound is created by a dot under the letter and a yud, the 10th letter of the alphabet, the letter yud, the smallest letter, next to a letter or a dot underneath will give you the E sound. The O sound is created by a dot on top of a letter, or a dot on top and the letter Vav, which is the 6th letter of the alphabet. So either one of those will create the sound of O. The U sound is created by either a Vav with a dot in the middle or a 3 diagonal dots. Either one of those will create the sound of U. And the short vowel is 2 dots under the letters. So this is it, the sound system. Let's go back and introduce the entire alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet. Let's look at the Hebrew alphabet, and I will take the risk of singing it again, and that goes like this. Aleph Bet, Gimel Dalet, Hey Vav, Zayin Chet Tet Yud Kaf, Lamed Mem Nun Samech Ayin Pei, Tzadik Kuf Resh Shin Tav. That's the whole thing, the Hebrew, 22 Hebrew letters. Today, we're going to actually start working on the Hebrew letters. And the first letter of the alphabet, obviously, is Aleph, the letter Aleph. So if you watch my lips and watch me say the letter Aleph, you can repeat after me if you want. Aleph, Aleph. That is the name of the first letter that later became Alpha and later became A in English. Same letter, same sound. The Hebrew letter Aleph is made of several parts. And I'm going to go to the board and show you on the board the parts of the Hebrew letter. I will usually draw the Hebrew letters inside a square. We call that square a universe. And you will see in a minute why. Some of the letters expand and take the entire universe. Other letters are skinny or small, like the letter Yud that we already introduced to. The 10th letter of the Aleph Bet that is so small is the smallest letter. But it also represents the infinity of one side of the characteristic of God is the infinity, and that letter represents that. So inside the universe, you will see how much the letter expands and how much it takes place. The first letter, Aleph, is written this way. Usually, the rule is to go front to back and top to bottom. So you can always, as a rule of thumb, go like this and like this. that will give you kind of an idea how to draw the letters. The first letter, Aleph, start at the top and go back down this way, diagonally, from one end to it to the other. Then you have a line that comes down to about 1/3 of the letter from the bottom, and another one that comes down about 1/3 of the top. This is the letter Aleph. You don't want to do something like this or like this. Those are not the letter Aleph. The letter Aleph has a definite way of drawing it, which is this. Now, inside the universe, the Aleph expands and takes over the entire space. But if you look closely, you will see that there is access to any point in that universe from anywhere to anywhere. Nothing is blocking. You can always get to any point inside there from any direction. And that represents another characteristic of God, which is being everywhere. He's the entire space of the universe. You can find God. So the letter Aleph represents, first of all, it has a numerical value, which is number 1. So Aleph represents a numeric 1. And it represents the unity of the creation. It represents the united universe. And it represents 1, which is God. It represents the mastery of God, that characteristic that is the mastery of God. So the Aleph is thought of as a letter that represents those characteristics of God that are the mastery, the oneness, the unity. The interesting part about all of the Hebrew letters is that graphically they are very simple, and they are made from very few simple elements. You will see that the letter Yud, the letter Vav, the letter Resh, which is the R sound towards the end of the letter string, and you'll see the letter Kaf, and all of the letters are made from these elements. So graphically, the letters are very simple. The letter Aleph also looks like a ladder that goes and connects between the heavens and the earth. And in a way, you look at the letter Aleph, and you can divide it to its parts, dissect it to its parts. So what you have is the letter Vav diagonally, and the letter Yud sitting on it, on top, and the letter Yud is inverted, sitting on the bottom. So basically, you have the 6th letter of the alphabet, Vav, and 2 Yuds. The Yud is the 10th letter of the alphabet. Now, each one of the Hebrew letters represent also a numerical value. The numerical values of these letters, the Vav is 6, the Yud is 10, and here is another Yud, which is another 10. So together, we have 26. 26 is the sum of the parts of the Aleph. And it also happened to be the sum of a very important word that we all heard of. It's the Hebrew name for God, that was translated or transliterated to English as Jehovah. That the sum of the letters of that name also is 26. So that's another support to the idea that the Aleph is a letter that represents one of the mastery, the characteristics of God, which is the mastery and the leadership. So even the parts of the letter, when you dissect it, will tell you something about what the letter is, what the letter means. So since we know one letter, and we know the vowels, I think it's time to read Hebrew. Let's try it. If I do this, here is your letter, Aleph, and here are the vowels. Pick a vowel. Remember that Hebrew is written from right to left. And people always ask me, why are you writing backwards? And I say, no. This is not backwards. English is backwards. This is 2,000 years earlier. So we're writing right to left, and there are many stories why languages are written the way they are. In the case of Hebrew, one of the stories that I like is that in ancient times, they used to hold the chisel in one hand and go this way when they carved the stone and write their letters, whatever. And at one point, they invented the papyrus or the paper, and they had ink, and they started writing with the ink, which was not fast drying like the ink today. So they were writing, and if you write from right to left, the way they did before, you would smear the ink. So what they did, they flipped sides, and now they're writing this way. They're letting the ink dry, and they switch sides. So all the later languages, the ancient languages, are written right to left, like Hebrew, and the later languages, after the invention of paper and ink, started to be written from left to right. I don't know if this is really true, but it's an interesting story to tell. So here is your Aleph, written from right to left, and we'll take a vowel. We'll put the vowel here. We'll have the vowel in a minute. Here is the vowel. And that vowel is A, right? So here is the Aleph with an A sound will give us an A. Here is an Aleph with an A sound. That will be an A. Here's an Aleph with an E sound, maybe a Yud next to it. That will make it an E combination. That's an E sound. Here is an Aleph with a Vav next to it and a dot on top of them. That will be an O sound. So it's an A, E, O, and we have another Aleph, a Vav next to it, and a dot in the middle. That's an U sound, right? Like right here. Another U can be created by this. A diagonal 3 dots will make you an U sound. And here is your ah, the sound. Okay, sounds simple enough. This is the first letter of the alphabet with the vowels employed, and it gives you all of the sounds that you want. Now let's take a look at the second letter of the alphabet, the letter Bet. The letter Bet also represents something unique. And in Hebrew, the word Bait is a house or a home. Enclosure could be a house, a housing for an engine or a housing for something else. But it represents that enclosure. It represents that home or house. So the letter Bet also is written from right to left, of course, in a string of letters. And it would be drawn like this. Remember the simple elements of the graphical form of the Hebrew letters. It goes front to back, like this, then down, then front to back again. And this time, you leave a little tail in the back. That is the letter Bet. The letter Bet is graphically simple. It fills the entire universe, and it's closed on 3 sides. The reason why it's closed is on the top, it's closed because it's what we call in Hebrew the chariot. That is the business of God, things He does. We shouldn't be concerned about it too much, even though it's very enticing, we are curious creatures. We want to know. We call it cosmic gossip. It's the way God put together the tail of a lizard or the wings of a butterfly. If I know the details of all of this function, it will not make me a better person. It will not do anything for me. I live here. I need to interact with people around me. And the Bible, the Torah, is talking about interaction between people, respect, and the chariot business is not going to help me much. So this is why the Bet is closed on the top. The Bet is closed on the back side because it represents the past. The past is gone. I have no way of bringing it back. So dwelling on the past is not going to be helpful. The bottom side represents the dark side. We are commanded not to go there and not to dwell with it, not in it, and not to visit there. So the bottom side is closed. And the front side is open. And that letter, the letter Bet, is the first letter of the Torah, the Bereshit, in the beginning, that was translated. So the letter Bet represents the opening to the way. From here on, you go into the laws and the commands that God gave us in the manual that is called the Torah, how to live our lives on this earth. So this is the letter Bet. Let me show you the letter Bet also on the string of letters right here. So here is your Aleph, and that is the Bet. You notice that the Bet has 2 forms of it. One has a dot inside, and the other one has no dot inside. That dot is called in Hebrew dagesh. And the dagesh is a dot that gives a letter a strength. Now, the Bet with the dagesh is like a B sound. Without it is like a V sound, softer. The letter Pei, for example, which we'll get to later, also takes a dagesh, a dot inside. That dot makes the P sound strong, like the letter P in English, and the letter P, the Pei without the dagesh, is more like an F in English, a softer F. So you'll see that with some of the letters. The letter Bet is also numerical value too, and it represents the duality in the creation. You have heaven and earth. You have this world and the world to come. You have male and female, good and evil. You have the two tablets of the Ten Commandments, and so on and so forth. So the letter Bet represents the spiritual house for the men. The difference between Bayit, which is a house in Hebrew, the letter Bayit, it would be spelled like this. Here is the letter Ba, and here is the Yud with an E sound, Bayit. That is the name of that letter. So the letter Bet with the Dagesh. This is how you read that letter. And now if we put the vowels to work, then we'll have a Bet with an A sound, Ba. We have the Bet with an A sound. Without that dot in the middle, that will be Va. So we have a Ba and a Va. And we can do a B like this. Like in here, we have a Bet with an E sound, with a dot in the middle to make the B sound, and a Yud next to it, like in here. Or we can do a Bo. Like in here. Or a Bu. Like in here, and so on. Now, I want you to be able to read a word before we go today. So the word would be, here is the first letter of the Aleph Bet, the A. Then we have the Bet. And we have that vowel, which gives us an A sound. We have an Aleph and a Bet. Aleph with an A sound, that's an A, and a Bet without the Dagesh is a V sound. Av. So the word Av in Hebrew represent the Aleph, which is one of the characteristics of God, which is the master, and Bet represent the house. So if we read this word, it will be the master or the leader of the house. And the leader of the house, obviously, in most cultures, is the father. So we have, in Hebrew, a father is Av. Not because you and I agreed that this is going to be father, but because the word itself, the letters themselves, are leading us to understand what it means. The Aleph represent the leader or the master, and the Bet represent the house. Together they are Av, which is the master of the house. Now, if I add the letter Aleph to that word, and I put another vowel here, we will read Aleph with an A sound, A. We have a Bet with a dot in the middle, which is a B sound, and an A, so it's a Ba, and an Aleph at the end. So we will read it, A, Ba. Now, this Aleph has a vowel, and therefore it has a sound. This Aleph has no vowel, therefore it has no sound. So we cannot hear this one, it's silent, and we can hear this one. So here is a rule for you. Anytime a letter that is voweled has a sound. All letters with vowels have sounds. And that will be a good thing to remember as a guideline. We have letters with vowels will always have a sound. In this case, we have Aleph with an A sound, A. We have a Bet with a dot in the middle with a B sound. We have an A sound underneath. So it's A, Ba, and the Aleph has no sound. So it's silence. Abba happened to be in Hebrew more like daddy. So we have Av, which is father, and then Abba is more like daddy. So here we are. We learn the first two letters of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph and Bet. And those two letters will allow us to continue next time with the following two letters, and we will start to be able to read words that are constructed from those first four letters.